How'd you earn your pay?
How'd you earn your pay?
I will reply with a whole lot of anger.
I will reply with a whole lot of anger.
Earn my pay as an airborne ranger.
Earn my pay as an airborne ranger.
Welcome guys, this is Specialist O'Brien, and today's video is going to be a discussion on physics and the numbers involved in making that long-range shot. There won't be, I should say, actually there's going to be a little bit of shooting at the end of these videos to illustrate some points in ARMA, some differences that are actually going to affect your shot at longer ranges that you probably didn't notice right off the bat, because at closer ranges they were not really noticeable. But anyway, we're talking about the physics and the numbers involved in making that long shot. So from the moment that the projectile leaves the barrel to the point of impact, and what exactly happens when that round hits somebody or hits an object. What's exactly happening there? So, and for you guys out there that are more interested in basically the science involved in shooting, this is actually going to make you a better shooter. I promise you, if you listen to this, it'll help you understand what exactly is involved in putting a bullet down range and hitting a target. So without further ado, let's get started. First thing I'm going to talk about is gravity. Gravity, gravity, gravity. Gravity is the single most important factor in making a long-range shot. It is the first thing you take into consideration when you make a long-range shot, because it doesn't matter if there's windage, it doesn't matter where you're shooting from, how high you are, your altitude, your angle that you're to your target. You're always going to have bullet drop at longer ranges that you need to compensate for. So, gravity. Gravity induces a force on an object as it's in proportion to its mass, such that the object's acceleration towards the Earth is always 9.8 meters per second squared. So what that means is that it doesn't matter if you're shooting a 50 cal, it doesn't matter if you're shooting a 308, it doesn't matter if you're shooting a 338 Lapua or 5.56, they're all going to drop the same rate. Now a lot of you guys are probably going, wait, that's not true. A lot of the 50 cal is a lot less a bullet drop than a 5.56, and I said, no, that's actually not true. What you're thinking about is the arc path, or the flight path of the bullet. Yes, the trajectory is flatter, but that's not because the bullet's dropping slower. That's because the bullet's velocity is being maintained throughout its flight. So the reason why 338 Lapua has such a straight, or I should say flatter, relatively flat flight path in relation to even a 50 cal at longer ranges is because the aerodynamics of the bullet combined with the weight give it the ability to maintain its kinetic energy and velocity through flight. Now, for you guys remember, kinetic energy is a function of mass, 1/2 mass times velocity squared. And here's the interesting thing about that. If you have a bullet, like a 50 cal, it's fairly heavy compared to a 5.56. It's about, let's see, they're 50 or 40, I think, 40 grams around that area to 50 grams, depending on what kind of round you're using. But that equation, 1/2 mv squared, is in terms of kilograms and meters per second. If you add if you double the weight of the, if you double the weight of the 50 cal round going through the air, you're only increasing the velocity by 150% of what it used to be. So the new velocity, the kinetic energy would be 150% of what it used to be. But if you doubled the speed of that bullet, it would actually have kinetic energy 4 times greater than it initially had. And that's why the 338 Lapua hits so much harder at ranges beyond 1,000 meters. I believe 1,000 meters around there is the cutoff point where the 338 Lapua actually has more kinetic energy to give on impact than 50 cal. So, why exactly do some bullets have flatter trajectories? Well, the 5.56, it's a light bullet. And to make up for its lack in mass, it has a lot of velocity. But that costs it. So why does it slow down? If it's going so fast and it's so aerodynamic, why is it slowing down? Well, here's why. Think of wind as kind of like a force, just like a pushing on other objects, which, well, I mean, essentially it's what it is, but think of it like this. You're pushing a small, like, object, like a little chair. You can tip over that chair with barely any effort in no time at all. But if you try to push on a table, the table's not going to move. It's not going to want to budge as much, and you're going to have to push on that table a lot harder or for a lot longer to get the same effect as you did on that tiny little chair. Same thing goes for wind and bullets. 5.56. Your wind, you have a set windage, pushing on that thing. That 5.56 is a small round. It's a little boy. You can push that thing around pretty easily. 50 cal. That's a big boy bullet. That windage is gonna have a hard time trying to push that thing and change its course. It's you probably guys, have alarms ringing in your head. Oh, that's inertia. That's inertia. Yeah, you're right. That's the basic principle of inertia. Things do not want to change from their current state, and objects will resist changes in their motion, and that's what's going on there. So the heavier you are, the less you want to change your state, pure and simple. So, but the thing is, a 50 cal and a 330 Plua. So you'd be wondering, why does the 50 cal have a flatter trajectory than a 338? That there is because of the function of friction and surface area. The amount of friction that wind, or the air, regardless of wind actually, exerts on an object is proportional to the surface area of the object in contact with the wind. So if you have an aerodynamic surface, that is to say a sleek and small surface area to volume ratio, the wind is not touching as much and it doesn't have much contact, so it's not pushing it, it's not slowing it down, not reducing its velocity as much. So although the 50 cal is pretty big, it's a big boy, it's fat, it's large, and wind is going to slow it down. Out to about 1,000 meters, it's going to slow down. Now, the 338, what was ingenious about this was that it combined just the perfect ratio between surface area and volume using basically a complex set of equations to maximize aerodynamics and kinetic energy at longer ranges. And what it does is it minimizes loss while maximizing the mass in the bullet. Minimizes speed loss. I thought I had to say speed loss. It minimizes speed loss while maximizing the possible amount of mass that it can have. And 338 was a result of that endeavor. And that's what that round was made for, is reaching out and touching soft targets at longer ranges. So, your bullet's traveling through the air, and once it gets to the target, what's exactly happening? Does it just hit the guy and just drops and dies magically? I mean, that's what it appears like most of the time. You just put a bullet and just see it hit, and the guy drops. Well, there's a lot more going on there than just that. And a lot of times, the Kanan thing, the classical thinking is you put a bullet in someone's head and yeah, that's the place to aim. Well, that's not necessarily the case. If any of you guys hunt out there, you know that in Hunter's Ed, or whenever you learn to hunt, they teach you to go for a core body shot, to aim for the vital organs, not necessarily for the head. One of the reasons is because there's a lot larger surface area to hit, as I mentioned in my marksmanship video, in maximizing your chance of landing a successful hit, and at the same time, when you hit there, the target is going to die. And it may not be instantly like the head, but it's going to guarantee to die. You're causing massive hemorrhaging, you're hitting vital organs, and that person or animal, in this case if you're hunting, is basically suffering from systematic organ failure over time and is going to die or bleed out, depending which one comes first, but is where you hit. But anyway, so the next thing here is a little bit of physics and anatomy mixed together. What really kills in a bullet wound, from a bullet wound, what really kills is not the actual drilling the hole that has caused it, but actually the force of the impact and the pressure created. And this is called hydrostatic shock. What's going on is the when a bullet impacts a person, what it does is actually it's creating pressure. It's not just like drilling a hole for the person. It's creating an immense amount of pressure as it transfers a ton of kinetic energy all at once in a short span of time. And that's known as power.